The sound comes first, boots striking against frozen ground, the crack of muskets slung against shoulders, the heavy silence of families being torn from their homes. You don't yet know where you're being taken. All you know is this: everything familiar, the rivers, the trees, the graves of your ancestors, will be left behind. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the stories that history tried to silence. It is May 1838. Soldiers swarm Cherokee villages, driving men, women, and children into makeshift stockades. Imagine the confusion: elders calling out for loved ones, mothers clutching infants, children too stunned to cry. The U.S. government calls this removal. You know it as exile. At first, you are told it will be a short journey. 2 months, they say. 1,000 miles to the west, where land waits for you in Oklahoma. But even in this first moment, you feel the weight of a lie. The rations are thin, the wagons too few, the soldiers impatient. Every mile already feels like the beginning of the end. The first steps are hesitant. The path is long, the ground already cold though winter hasn't yet arrived. Some are barefoot. Some are sick. Many look back one last time at the mountains and rivers that have always been home. The sound of chains rattling mingles with the sound of prayers whispered under breath. You cannot yet see what awaits: the blizzards, the starvation, the graves dug shallow by frozen hands. But something in you already knows. This is not a journey of hope. This is a trail of tears. The march begins at dawn. The soldiers rouse you from restless sleep inside the crude stockades. No time for proper meals. No chance to gather belongings. Just a small ration of flour or cornmeal. Barely enough to quiet the stomach, let alone feed the body. The soldiers call it provisions. You call it starvation in slow motion. Children stumble forward, half asleep, their hands clutching scraps of cloth or dolls carved by their fathers. Some are barefoot on dirt that cuts like knives. The road stretches endlessly, but the pace is relentless. 8 to 10 miles each day, no matter who falls behind. If you are old, sick, or too young to walk, you may ride in one of the wagons. But wagons are few, and spaces are saved for the weakest: the dying elders, mothers nursing infants, and children too fragile to stand. Everyone else must walk, even the pregnant, even the nearly blind. The path winds not only through forests and rivers, but also through hostility. Townsfolk line the road. They do not offer food or water. Instead, they stare. Some jeer. Some charge fees to cross their land, as though suffering itself has a price. Imagine being forced to pay for each head of your people, while others cross the same river for pennies. You see soldiers grow impatient. A man too weary to move is whipped until his body shudders with pain. A woman collapses, carrying a child on her back, and the caravan does not stop. The soldiers bark for the line to keep moving. And always the silence of the witnesses: white settlers in warm woolen clothes, arms crossed, eyes cold, watching your people stagger past. Their children peek curiously from behind fence posts, as though witnessing a parade. But this is no parade. It is a funeral march stretched over 1,000 miles. The hunger gnaws deeper with each mile. What game there once was has fled the woods, or is claimed by others. Your hunters return empty-handed. Families chew on roots, strip bark from trees, and whisper prayers for rain that never comes. Night falls, and the campfires flicker weakly. Blankets are thin, food scarcer still, but the sound of crying is not scarce at all. Mothers try to hush their children, afraid the soldiers will grow angry. Elders sing old songs, voices cracking, trying to remind the people of who they are. But as you lay on the frozen earth, you feel the truth. The road has only just begun, and already it is breaking you. The wind cuts like glass. By late autumn, the leaves are gone, and the path ahead lies open to sleet and snow. The Cherokee thought the journey would be over in 2 months. But delays, poor planning, and cruelty stretched it into 4. That meant the march would pass through the dead of winter. Your blanket is thin, barely enough to shield you from the cold. Some have no shoes, only scraps of cloth tied around their feet. The soldiers keep you moving, mile after mile, while ice forms in your hair and breath freezes in your chest. Illness spreads faster than fire in dry grass. Pneumonia, measles, dysentery, sickness spares no one. Children cough until their small bodies give out. Elders collapse silently in the snow. Mothers try to shield their babies, tucking them beneath thin shawls, but the bitter wind pierces everything. The wagons fill with the weakest, but space is scarce. You see a mother begging for her child to be allowed inside. The soldier shakes his head. She weeps as she carries the little one on her shoulders, trudging through the snow until she herself stumbles. The child is silent. Too silent. At night, the cold is merciless. The fires are small, the wood damp, the rations nearly gone. People huddle together, pressing body against body for warmth. Some sing old songs in whispers, others pray to spirits, others simply close their eyes, too tired to do anything but wait for the dawn. And then there is the burial. Graves dug shallow because the ground is frozen hard. Sometimes there is no burial at all. Sometimes the body is left where it fell, covered only by snow, while the caravan keeps moving. Time does not stop for grief. The young soldier, John Burnett, writes later of what he saw: men and women walking barefoot through sleet, quivering under whips, their faces hollow with hunger. He called it the most brutal order in the history of American warfare. Yet even his words cannot capture the sound, the endless coughing, the weeping, the silence when another soul slips away. You begin to feel something dangerous. Not only hunger, not only cold, but a kind of emptiness inside your chest, where hope once lived. You realize this road is not a road at all. It is a sentence carved by power, enforced by cruelty, and paid for with blood. Still, the soldiers push you forward. And so you walk one frozen mile at a time. You begin to notice them more and more, the onlookers. White settlers standing at the edges of the road, their wool coats pulled tight against the wind. They are warm. You are not. They are fed. You are starving. Their children watch with wide eyes, as if this misery were a spectacle arranged for their amusement. Some towns refuse to let the caravan pass. The route is forced to bend, stretching the journey by miles upon miles. Landowners demand payment for crossing their fields or ferries. Each head, each child, each elder, priced like livestock. You pay in coins when you have them. When you don't, you pay with time, with strength, with lives. And all the while, soldiers grow harsher. An old man falters on the road. A teamster shouts, cracks the whip across his back. He staggers, nearly blind, his body trembling with every lash. Finally, one soldier, young, disgusted, throws himself between them. He takes a blow to the face for his trouble. But most of the guards look away, unmoved. The cruelty is not always in the lash. Sometimes it is in silence. A child coughs herself into stillness, carried in her mother's arms. The wagon ahead creaks forward. No one stops. The soldiers bark for the line to keep moving. The mother stumbles, falls to her knees, clutching the tiny body against her chest. Still, the march goes on. At night, the despair grows heavier than the cold. You hear whispers of hatred, words from a 9-year-old boy named Samuel Cloud, who will later say he learned to hate the white people who watched in silence. He saw them wrapped in wool, watching as his people staggered past barefoot and starving. Hatred planted in a child's heart, watered by grief. Yet even hatred cannot feed the stomach. The rations dwindle until there is almost nothing. Men try to hunt, but the land offers little. Drought cracks the earth, rivers shrink to mud, and the game is scarce. Hunger gnaws until you feel more hollow than human. And through it all, you keep walking. Because there is no other choice. Stopping means death. Falling behind means the cold earth becomes your grave. The trail is not just a road. It is a mirror, showing you the cruelty of a world that values your life less than the soil it takes from you. And as you walk, you begin to understand. The worst wound is not to the body, but to the spirit. By now, the days blur together. Footsteps, snow, hunger, silence. The journey that was promised to take 2 months has stretched to nearly 4. And with each passing day, fewer remain in the line. The rations are nearly gone. The soldiers hand out small handfuls of cornmeal, a scrap of dried meat. Families try to stretch what little they have, but hunger turns even kindness into despair. Some whisper of boiling bark, others chew on leather straps, desperate for anything to fill their stomachs. The bodies pile up. Graves are dug hastily, shallow and cold, because there is no time and no strength for anything more. Sometimes the ground is too frozen to dig at all, and the dead are left behind, their faces turned to the sky, covered only by snow. The trail becomes a long, unbroken cemetery. Mothers walk with children tied to their backs, their eyes glassy with fever. Fathers stumble under the weight of carrying both their own hunger and the weight of family. Elders whisper prayers, though their voices are faint. And still, the soldiers shout for the caravan to move faster. Those who survive are not untouched. They carry memories heavier than any pack. The image of a sister buried by the roadside. The sound of a child's final cough in the dead of night. The endless eyes of strangers who watched and did nothing. And then, after nearly 1,000 miles, the land of Oklahoma finally comes into view. But there is no relief, no celebration, no homecoming. This land is not home. It is foreign, flat, and strange. You have traded the mountains and rivers of your ancestors for soil promised by a government that has already broken its word once, and will break it again. Those who arrive are ghosts of themselves. For thousands are gone, swallowed by cold, hunger, and despair. Those who remain are marked by scars too deep to heal. They do not walk into Oklahoma with hope, they stumble in with grief. The trail has ended, but the sorrow has only just begun. The trail ends, but the sorrow does not. By the 1840s, tens of thousands of indigenous people have been pushed west, across the Mississippi River, into the so-called Indian Territory. The government swears these lands will remain untouched, that here the tribes can live in peace. But you already know what promises are worth. The Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Seminole, and many others rebuild as best they can. New cabins rise, fields are planted, children are born. Yet the grief of the trail lingers in every family. Empty chairs, unmarked graves, memories that gnaw at the heart. You do not need to look far to find someone who lost a child, a parent, a friend on that march. But even this fragile stability is temporary. Settlers continue to push westward. The land once guaranteed to native nations shrinks, year after year, as Indian Territory is carved into smaller and smaller pieces. In 1907, Oklahoma becomes the 46th state. The territory is gone. The promises broken again. The Trail of Tears is remembered in numbers, 4,000 Cherokee dead, countless more from other nations. But numbers cannot tell the story. Numbers do not capture the sound of children coughing in the snow, the sight of mothers digging shallow graves with bare hands, the hollow eyes of a boy who learns hatred too young. What remains is not only history but warning. A reminder of how power can strip away home, identity, and life itself. A reminder of how cruelty, when left unchecked, writes itself into the soil of a nation. And yet, through all the loss, survival endures. The people endure. Songs are still sung. Stories are still told. Languages still spoken. A trail meant to erase a people instead carved their strength into memory. But for those who walked it, who froze, who starved, who buried their loved ones by the roadside, there was no triumph. Only helplessness. Only inevitability. Only the long shadow of a march that never truly ended. This was life on the Trail of Tears.